start off by talking about an incredible journey I went on between 1999 and 2019, so it's 20 years. I joined a company called EC. EC's core business is teaching English as a foreign language through what we call a full immersion model. At the time, we had one school. Interestingly enough, it was just literally around 200 meters away from here. And I joined as a part-time accountant. I fell in love with the industry, and then a year later, I joined on a full-time basis as the GM for the school. And then as we scaled up the business internationally, I moved into a COO role, which I did in the early 2000s, and then in 2009, I stepped into the CEO role. At the time, we had 8 schools spread in 4 different countries, and by the time I stepped down 10 years later, we had actually scaled this up into 29 schools in 8 different countries, and we were employing over 1,000 people. So it was a real nice success story. And for me, it was an incredible, thank you. And for me, it was an incredible journey because of all the learning, all the people I worked with and I met and made friends with, all the travel to all 4 corners of the world. But most importantly, it was the pride to see a Maltese company becoming one of the sort of largest and leading players in its sector, which, because of the size of our island, doesn't happen very often. But in 2018, I started to ask myself a few big questions. And the first one was about motivation. I've been doing this for 19 years. The company was starting to get a bit corporate. Do I still have the right energy to do this job and do this job properly? Am I still learning enough? Where for me, personal growth was always a very important core value. The hardest question was, am I prepared to let go? I've built all these networks and friends. I've got this nice role and title. Am I ready to let go of all this and the comfort? I know what I'm doing. Am I ready to let go of all this and start something from scratch? And that took me quite a lot of time to answer before I actually got to the conclusion that I could. From an early age, I always wanted to build my own business. And because I was really enjoying what I was doing, I just never found the time to do it. But I wasn't growing younger, so I was getting to a point where it was like, I'm either going to do it now or I'm never going to do this at all. So that in some ways pushed me to take this decision. And I think finally, which is something that maybe we don't also consider very often, is your personal circumstances. My kids were growing up, my wife and myself had become more financially independent. I actually had the time to leave something and give myself the time to find the right thing that I wanted to do. So in 2019, August, I finally left EC after a full 20 years. And I started trying to figure out, okay, now I know I want to build my own business, but where and what do I want to do? Now there's my favorite business book. It's by an author called Jim Collins, called Good to Great. One of the principles he talks about is the hedgehog principle. And what he says is the great companies typically find that sweet spot, which is the intersection between what am I very good at, what am I very passionate about, and how can I convert that into large revenues and profitability. And I think this model works very much for us as individuals when we're looking at change. If I'm looking at a career change or setting up a business, what am I good at? What am I really passionate and I love doing? And then thirdly, how can I convert that into a sustainable income or earning? And doing one of those is easy, getting one of those right. Getting 2 of them is okay, it's doable. Trying to get the 3 of them is not always very easy. But I managed to figure out, okay, I think if I go into the boutique hotel sector, I'm very passionate about this. I feel I could be good at it. And I think if I get things right, I'll be able to drive the financials through. So I took a decision to go around the route of boutique hotels. The other important thing is timing. So I quit in EC in August 2019. I started looking for a hotel. You may recall that at that time, tourism was doing pretty well. So people are asking for stupid amounts of money if you want to buy a hotel or rent a hotel. So I said, listen, hang on, I'm just going to sit down, enjoy my freedom and my time, and I'll just wait for things to change. Fast forward a few months and COVID comes. Now, sadly, COVID brought us a big negative impact on tourism, and suddenly properties that were prohibitive became options. So the timing allowed me to go into a sector that if things didn't change, I may have had to wait or had to shift into doing something different. So I think timing was really important for me. And then finally, it's taking an informed decision. I made the time to meet people from the sector. I was new to the sector. I didn't know much. So I made the time to meet people from hotel backgrounds, from hospitality backgrounds, to learn a little bit more about it, did my research, so that when I did my first moves, I knew what I was doing. I started my hotel journey in September 2020. I took over a hotel in Valletta called 19 Rooms. And then in March of 2022, I opened a new hotel in Slema called Amery House, which has 28 rooms, and we're actually in the process of expanding it by a further 9 rooms. And then further on in that year, I took over a small boutique hotel in Valletta called the Coleridge. So we currently have 3 hotels in our portfolio. There's another 1 or 2 in the pipeline. And the ambition, my aim, is to try and get to 10 boutique hotels by 2028. Right now, tourism is booming. The business is doing great. So the last 12 months have really, really been good. But there have been some big bumps along the way. And the first one was COVID. I mean, the flip side to that opportunity coin is trying to operate a hotel in the time of COVID, as you can imagine, was not easy. So I moved in September 2020. At the time, I had 1 full-time employee who was the manager, and I had a part-time housekeeper. We didn't open the hotel till May of the next year. And at the time, to try and cut costs, I sort of had to roll my sleeves up and do a bit of everything. I had to prepare breakfast, do the receptionist role, sometimes clean the rooms, do a bit of maintenance work. But the good thing about that was that it really allowed me to learn the ropes. So now today, when I'm speaking to the hotel managers and they need some support or some advice, I know what they're talking about. So there's always a silver lining with these things. But in the middle of it, you have a certain anxiety. Is this COVID going to go away? Am I going to be able to sort of survive? But as we all know, it eventually did, and tourism is thriving again. But my biggest challenge and obstacle was funding. When we opened Amery House in March of 2022, 19 Rooms was still not profitable, so obviously it was still burning some cash, and we went way over budget with the finishing of the hotel in Amery House. So I got to a position where I needed to get some bank funding. So I went to my bank that had my mortgage and everything. I had a relationship with them. They didn't want to fund me. So I had to look for another bank, remortgage my personal home with this other bank, and they gave me a bank loan with a guarantee on my own personal home. So I then dipped into our entire family cash savings, which weren't insubstantial, you know, and got to a stage where I opened this hotel, and I was literally having to manage the cash on a week-by-week basis, and that really wasn't fun. 3 months later, summer came, the hotels picked up, cash started coming in, and from there, you know, we got into a much better stage. But when I look back on it, that certainly wasn't something I enjoyed, and I definitely wouldn't want to ever put myself through again. And I guess the lesson learned is just sort of living, whether it's on a personal level or in your business, way within your means. Looking back over the last 3 years, if I sort of had to try and reflect on the things I learned most, because obviously there's been a lot of learning, I think the first thing is I want to just go back to the issue of timing, because timing isn't everything, but timing is crucial. You know, timing is crucial for, I mean, there's people in the room maybe thinking about a personal fresh start or a change. It's important for you on an individual basis. Is it the right time for you to make a change in terms of your family, in terms of your finance, whatever it is? But it's also timing in terms of what you're going to do. Is this the right time to join this company? Is this the right time to move into this sector? So I think when we are taking those decisions about big changes, it's important to sort of reflect really deeply about the timing of that decision. The second is, I think, you know, there's this big cliche saying that life begins at the end of your comfort zone, which in my opinion is bollocks, right? You can live in your comfort zone and be happy, you definitely can, but, and there is a big but, if you're ambitious, if you really want to achieve things, if you really want to make the best of your time on this planet, you have to get out of your comfort zone. And that is really about doing things that you might feel uncomfortable doing. You know, whether it's standing up and giving a talk or joining a new sector that you're not sort of knowledgeable about. So, and for me at my stage of my life, when you're younger, I think you feel more comfortable to step out of your comfort zone because you have less to risk, because you want to learn more. And then as you grow older, you start trying to calibrate that. Because maybe you have more to lose, maybe you're a bit more comfortable. I've done my time, our kids have grown up, I want to take risks. So I'm always trying to balance, shall I grow faster and get 10 hotels in 2 years? But if I do that, it's going to impact my lifestyle. Or shall I do it a little bit slower and find more balance? But whatever the case, I think it's important that if you really want to grow and you are ambitious, you need to take that step and move outside your comfort zone. So that's it from me. Before I go, I want to share a couple of stories that if you want to really look into some amazing and inspiring fresh starts, look into these two individuals. This woman here is Martine Wright. I had the privilege of inviting her down in Malta to give a talk at an event that I organized. So this woman was on one of the trains when there were the bombings in London on 7/7 in 2004. Unfortunately, she happened to be in one of the cabins in a tube where there was one of the bombers. She lost her legs, went through trauma, recovered and became a Paralympian. And you listen to her story, I can assure you, I have never ever seen that level of emotion in a room when I heard her speak. She was like inspiring. The other is Alex Zanardi. Some of you may recognize him. He's a former motor racing driver. Incredible story, had a bad crash, lost both his legs, lost 3/4 of his blood, recovered and went on to become a Paralympian champion, Ironman record world holder for Paralympians. Incredible story. So if you want to look up some great stories on Fresh Starts, it's Martine Wright and Alex Zanardi. Thank you very much. How do I do that?